Before we get into this week's episode, I have a very special announcement I'd like to share with you all. As my valued listeners, I wanted you to be the first to know about the inaugural Women and Wealth Catalyst Summit that I'll be hosting in 2025. I hope you'll join me and some other amazing women on March 27th at the Golden Gate Club in San Francisco for a full day of impactful sessions, including fireside conversations, intimate panels, and engaging discussions with values-aligned partners. Do not miss this opportunity to ignite your path to financial success and become part of a supportive network committed to achieving wealth. Reserve your spot today at women.win. That's right, ladies, women.win. And join us for a day that will shape your financial future. If you can't join us in San Francisco, be sure to stay tuned for New York City dates and venues soon to be announced. I can't wait to see you all there.
Welcome to Getting Rich Together, the show for successful women who are looking to take their financial futures to the next level. I'm your host, Shama Bunton. When I started my wealth building journey, nobody knocked on my door to give me all the answers. So I want to talk to the experts who've done it and bring the answers to you so we can discover the right opportunities that will help us achieve the financial futures we've always dreamed of together and have fun doing it. So let's dive into this episode and start getting rich together.
I am here today with the beautiful and brilliant Dominique Broadway. Dominique, you are someone who has built an incredible life and career on being able to help empower, educate, and really just help people get rich together. You are simply the embodiment of what it means to evangelize good education around being able to close gaps on how we invest our money, how we think about finances. And certainly it goes beyond just the number of people whom you've been able to touch. You've also received incredible awards. So being top 30 under 30 is not nothing. Being able to have an incredible book published, your tours, again, you've impacted many lives. I'm so excited to have you here today on Getting Rich Together. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Wonderful. Well, so many people know you through your ability to educate and your ability to sort of unpack things. Before you were the founder of Finances Demystified, before you wrote your book, you were once a little girl and you were once someone who maybe didn't know she was going to end up in finance, or maybe she did. So Dominique, take us back to a young girl somewhere between 5, 10 years old. Where are you living? What's going on around you? And most importantly, what were some of the money stories around you?
Ooh, good question. Okay, so 5-year-old Dominique, I was living in Silver Spring, Maryland. So I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, but I was living specifically in Silver Spring, Maryland. My mom was a single mom at the time. My dad actually was in prison for the first 4.5 years of my life. My mom wasn't working as an accountant. She didn't graduate college, but she was working as an accountant. So I was the kid that got in trouble all the time for talking too much, for apparently trying to take over the classroom is what the teacher used to always say. And that was me. I don't know if I necessarily knew at that time I would be in finance, but I definitely knew that I was always a natural born leader for sure. And, you know, it's funny now, I will say, like, the thing that I got in trouble for the most, which was talking too much, is the thing that I literally get paid to do now. And so even at that age, it's funny, I was always trying to find my hidden talent, right? At 5 and 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10, well, like, everyone had this like skill. They could, you know, play the piano really well or dance or just had talents, right? And I used to always come home crying like, Mom, I don't have a hidden talent. And I tried piano and tried all these different things. But when I look back on my childhood, I'm like, I was always the kid that was getting asked to like host the assembly, or when I was in a Christian private school, read the Bible verses, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's really interesting to look back on the things that I was kind of trying to run away from, because I was like, well, I want to be able to sing and dance like everyone else. But I had a different gift, right? Which was public speaking and apparently leading.
I was going to say, it's so funny. I wonder how many people, because I definitely feel like I can relate. I wonder how many people on this planet grew up as being like the kids who talk too much, who are now like talking too much, and everyone's listening.
Everyone's listening. I love it. It's a blessing. It really is. I have a lot of friends who said the same thing. They're like, she's smart, but she just won't stop talking. It's like,
I love that. So you were saying that the money environment around you, what did it look like around you? And what were some of the things that you were picking up early?
So the money environment around me was it was very unique in a way that I honestly feel like I am in my line of work because of that money environment. So as I mentioned, my mom was an accountant. And so she was obviously all about counting the coins, very much always had me very much involved in the day-to-day finances of the house. So when she would get her paycheck, we would go to the bank and deposit it. Or when she had to write the mortgage check or the rent check, we would sit down and I would actually write it, and she would show me how to fill out the check and balance the checkbook. And it was like a very just like normal thing that we often talked about. If she had financial struggles, she didn't necessarily share that, but she just made it very clear, like, I go out, I earn this money, pay the bills, et cetera, et cetera. She had various side hustles as well, and so we were just always having those conversations about money. And also my grandparents were very much the same way. So we were having conversations about money a lot. My grandfather, since I was a kid, was always just infusing money quotes in my head. And so one of the things he would always say is he would teach me, he's like, in life, Dominique, there's two type of people. What type of people are there? And I'm like, there's spenders and there's savers. And he was like, which one are you? And I'm like, I'm a saver. Now, I had no clue what I was saying. It was like something that he was like, embedding in me. And over time, it was something that I was like, I'm a saver. Like I spend, but like, I'm always going to prioritize saving. So I never really saw my family necessarily struggle financially. I saw my dad struggle a little bit, obviously transitioning from, being in jail to coming out, but he was also pretty good with his money. So like he actually bought a house like 9 months outside of being out of jail, which was like crazy. So I had a lot of people in my family who were just really, in my immediate family, who were really good with money. We were middle class. We weren't like the richest people on the block or anything, but they just tried to be good stewards of the money that they had, and really just tried to make it known to me, especially my grandfather, like, as you make more money, the key to life is keeping your expenses low and not letting your lifestyle constantly creep up with your income. And those were just little things that I was constantly hearing that even at a young age, I didn't really understand, but over time they were like embedded in my head,
God bless your grandfather. I mean, that is something that is really unique. It doesn't really matter what social economic class you grow up in. If someone's not around to tell you like, hey, think about these things, like you just don't know. And even these like early kinds of, self-affirmations, right, can realize themselves over time. So, during your high school years, did you find yourself, were you like heads down in the books? Were you, Dominique, I'm going to go, have fun on the weekends? Were you working? Like what was high school like for you? How did you start to like develop into your young self?
I loved high school. I like being.
Were you popular in high school?
I didn't win it. I did win best dress a couple times. No, but it was interesting in high school. I would say it was a lot of the things I did when I was younger is like I did in high school. So my high school years, I was in the books, not as much as I needed to be in the books. I was the kid that was like skipping school, but had businesses, right? So I started my first business when I was like 5 or 6. And by the time I got to high school, my sophomore year, I got into the candy business. I would sell candy and things like that to the kids.
Wait, what was the business at 5 or 6? What was that business?
I used to make bracelets. So I made bracelets out of gimp and out of beads. My mom would take me to Michael's and I would make bracelets and like sell them to whoever I could sell them to.
And where did you put that money? So at 5 or 6, when you were like starting entrepreneurial journeys, where did the money go?
the money would typically go either directly into my savings account, because I had a savings account, or into my piggy bank, or I would spend it. But I would try to take the money and like budget it out, honestly. Like my mom would sit down with me and say, okay, if you made $10, we're going to take 6 of it and you can spend it. We're going to take 2 of it and put it here and 2. So we would like start with my small amounts. And then I just loved to see that my money was growing. And then as a kid, it was also like, I just felt like if I want to go in the store and buy something, I got my own money. You can't tell me no.
That's amazing.
Okay,
so that then matures into a high school student.
Yes.
So what's happening in high school? Where are you making money? Where are you spending money?
Yes. So in high school, I'm making money from selling candy my like freshman year. And then I was working like various jobs. Like I wanted to just make more money. I found this like advertisement in like, it was like Craigslist or some penny saver, some thing, I don't know. And this guy was looking for a COO for his company. And he was a teen, and I applied and I get the job. And it's so funny. I actually just saw him the other day. He came to my house and he hired me to be the chief operating officer. I was like 15. Yeah, I was like 15 or 16. And he had a company called Kids Interactive Data Systems. And we taught kids how to use computers on the weekends because they were teaching it, but they weren't really teaching it the way that they are now. And so people were trying to get their kids to learn how to use computers better. And so we would teach some evenings, mainly weekends. We would teach kids how to do that. We had his dad worked at a company that let us have like a office in there. We had computers in the room. So that's what I would do some evenings and weekends.
Who are you? Okay. How much did you make? What did that even look like?
I cannot remember. I have to ask Michael, like, how much were you paying me? I'm sure it wasn't a lot. It was probably like maybe $500, $800 a month or so, wow. Which probably technically is a lot back then.
It's a lot back then. Yep.
But I don't think it probably wasn't more than a month, honestly. It was, we were charging, but he had to get paid and we had to pay. We were only employees at that time. And thank God his dad's company it wasn't his dad's company, but it was dad's friend's company, didn't charge us rent. So our overhead was pretty low. And we actually ended up shutting the company down like a couple years later because he had to go to college. And I didn't want to run it anymore. And so then I would work. I worked at Target for a couple of months. I worked at Old Navy for like a week. I worked at Picture People for like 3 days. So I started doing those types of things. And then, as far as spending my money, it was clothes, right? Like all other kids, it was clothes. When I worked at Target, that's why I had to quit because I would spend my entire paycheck there, things like that. But also around 16 was when I started working those I call them odd and end jobs, and having to like not being COO anymore. To me, I was like, I'm working way too hard for this money.
Yes.
And that is honestly, because I was like, okay, with our other job, maybe I'm making $500 a month or whatever, but only working a couple hours a week because we're getting paid more. We own the company. And then going to like Target, I'm making $6-7 an hour. I'm like, this is not it. So that's actually around 16 is when I got into the stock market.
Oh my God. So who exposed you to the stock market, and how did you open up, who guided you through this?
Unfortunately, I was really self-guided. I was just a really inquisitive kid, and I'm just like, I don't want to work so many hours. I'm not lazy. I would have 2-3 jobs. I just felt like the time I was putting in for what I was receiving, it just didn't sit well with me at that age.
Such a smart woman at such a young age to be like time value.
I'm like, I have to work all these hours and you get this paycheck, and it was like, $200 or something. Like, I was there for a week. Anyway, so my mom would have books, my mom and my stepdad would have Black Enterprise and things like that laying around. I would read the New York Times and stuff like that my grandfather would have, or Wall Street Journal. And I was just like, what is this? Like, how are people making money? And I remember just kind of reading articles about how rich people were making money and growing their wealth. And it was always 3 ways. It was entrepreneurship, real estate, and stock market. I'd already dabbled with entrepreneurship. I didn't really have enough money to buy a house. And so I was like, I'm going to figure out the stock market thing. And I just got really intrigued with it. Just seeing how people were making these returns and not having to physically do labor. And so I just started teaching myself. I went to my family and was like, hey, can you guys teach me about this investing thing? And they're like, we have retirement accounts, but we don't really know how they worked. And so my grandfather specifically said, here, take my TSP statement, which is a thrift savings plan statement. My grandfather was the chief of IT for Department of Defense at the time.
Wow.
Said, yeah. So he's like, just figure this out and come back and write a report. That was like always his answer. Just figure it out and write me a report. So I took his TSP statement. He bought me Investing for Dummies. And I just kind of went all in and went to the library, and like there was no Google, anything like that. It just started trying to figure it out. And then like after like maybe a month, I opened up an account for myself and made my first investment. I had to have my mom open it up as a custodian account because I was 16. I took about $50. I put $25 into Apple, $25 into Jones Soda. And then as I started making more money from these other jobs, I just kept adding in. Wow. So when I was buying Apple, it was like $18 a share. Like I actually found the statements recently of like me making those first purchases.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so over time, I just kept adding in. And I just got, more.
Did you tell anybody? Like, did your friends know you were doing this, or was this like super on the DL?
Not really, because it just went over their head. And I just, no, not really. I don't think so. Because no one else is caring about this at this time. They're just worried about boys. I'm worried about boys too. I had a boyfriend and all the things, but I'm like, still trying to get rich on the side. Like,
I mean, you're building an empire. Nobody knows about it. You're like super stealth mode, keeping up with all the things and like not sleeping because clearly like you're up to so many things. And so as you're making your way then obviously by the time you decide to go to university, it's clear for you, right? Like you're loving finance, you are doing well trading. Can you give us an idea of a general idea of what your stock market portfolio looked like before you went into college?
When I was in college, it was those two stocks. I had Jones Soda, I had Apple. I was really buying a lot of Apple because I was like really obsessed with Apple. I think I remember having like some Disney, and I guess I have to find those statements. I had like just a couple. It was really companies that I was familiar with, like McDonald's, things like that.
By which know, yeah,
that I knew, and that was really it. I remember when I actually started college, when I was working, Chipotle IPO'd that summer, so I remember like buying Chipotle, like once it IPO'd, and I, started adding more over time. But I only had maybe like 5-6 companies, and I just really kind of focused on just the companies that I really knew about. But most of my portfolio was definitely Apple.
That's so incredible. And so here you are in university, focused on finance. So knowing that's what you want to get into, had you sort of at that point realized that you were going to, did you map it out? I'm going to get these jobs in finance after college. Then I'm going to open up my own company. Like how far down the road had you sort of seen or intuited things at that time?
Not super far. All I knew was I was going to go to college and I was going to work at Morgan Stanley. That was pretty much the extent of what I wanted. I was like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to become a licensed stockbroker at Morgan Stanley.
Wow.
That was my whole plan. And I had picked Morgan Stanley because when I was looking for like mentors, looking for other Black women in the space, first of all, they were like nowhere. And then I found Carla Harris, who was working at Morgan Stanley. And so I was like, well, I want to work at Morgan Stanley. Carla Harris is at Morgan Stanley, but she was really the only African-American woman that I could find really in that space. And so that was really as far as my goal went. Go to college, get an internship at Morgan Stanley, work at Morgan Stanley, become a huge wealth manager or stockbroker. And that's kind of where my vision ended for me.
That's a pretty big vision. I mean, that's still, it's hard to know sort of what happens beyond that, which we can see, but that's a really big vision at a young age. And so as you were emerging out of the university experience and starting to get your feet wet and get into finance, I always think it's interesting to think about, you have your personal finances and then there's the business of finance. And in the business of finance, it's, you're up against lots of other things about yourself, negotiating, office politics, learning about new things. Had you, when you started off in the realm in the financial markets, when you started working there professionally, were you a great self-advocate? Were you good at negotiating? How did you sort of start to look at how you were showing up in the workplace, and then also reconciling that with, let's say, the development of your own portfolios? And did your portfolios change as a result of sort of now having these new experiences?
When I got into the industry, I would say it was a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. I ended up getting this internship. Actually, I ended up getting an internship at Morgan Stanley. 4 days before I'm supposed to go start my internship, I total my car and then find out a couple hours later that Morgan Stanley had cut their entire internship program for the summer. And I'm just like, obviously completely devastated. And I was in this program. So they said, hey, we're going to take everyone that was supposed to go to Morgan Stanley and you guys are going to have to interview again at other companies. And so I ended up interviewing at UBS Financial Services and a couple other, and then they liked me. So I ended up getting my internship there. They immediately offered me a full-time position at the end of the summer, but I had to go finish college. And
you're like, sorry, I need to finish school, but I'm ready.
Yeah, but I was able to, because I knew they wanted me, I was able to negotiate a little bit, right? So I'm always down to ask for what I wanted. I also convinced my career center to give me 3 credits for the summer because they were trying to give me 1 credit for the whole summer. I'm like, y'all gonna give me a course. Y'all gonna give me a whole class. So I negotiated with my career center to get 3 credits. And then once I got the full-time position, I asked them to hold it for me and to allow me to work in Maryland. So I actually started working full-time at UBS and getting my stockbroker licenses before I graduated college because it took me an extra semester to graduate college. Yeah, so I was definitely advocating for myself. I was a very just like, I wanted what I wanted. Over time, as far as my portfolio, it definitely broadened my eyes because I was working in the private wealth management side of the business. I've never seen a bank account with 2 commas before that. Like, I'm like, wow, like this is a lot of money that people have. And I was just so intrigued. I would sometimes just spend, even sometimes after work, just trying to looking at even the transaction and the history of how did these people build this account? And it really was just so helpful for me to see, like, one, Dominique, you're on the right path. I had been dollar cost averaging, not even necessarily understanding exactly what the term was for what I was doing. I had been doing that for years. And that was what a lot of the wealthy people were doing. And then understanding more about diversification, right? And, you know, we had a lot of clients who worked at Marriott, who were Marriott executives. We had a lot of clients who were AOL and had recently come into a lot of money from AOL. In seeing that, you know, once they got all these shares of AOL, they were liquidating and diversifying, right? And just seeing people investing into oil and energy. And I have been really focusing only on investing into industries that I was familiar with, but it really helped me to broaden my own, you know, just mindset of like where I want to move my money, but also understanding that, yes, that slow and steady can still win the race. And seeing people accumulating hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of shares over the years and how that helped them to build their wealth. And then also seeing the returns was just phenomenal. It was really cool to see.
I mean, what an incredibly transformative process for you. And so also you're probably picking up different kinds of access points to knowledge, right? Yeah. So like diversifying sort of where you get your information from. What were some of the things that you were reading or some of the sources that you were reading then that maybe you're still reading now? Like what occupies the mind share?
Yeah, I was a huge Wall Street Journal fan. I mean, that was like my favorite thing in the morning to get the Wall Street Journal in the lobby of our office.
Thanks, Grandpa. You know, you kind of instilled the love.
And have my little coffee. I felt like such an adult. You know what I mean? I was just like sitting there reading the Wall Street Journal. I don't read it as much now, but you know, everything's all digital, but I definitely still read various articles from that and New York Times. One of the things I love specifically about being at UBS was access to the analysts, right? And so we had in-house stock analysts or in-house analysts. I would love to just read their reports. I was like all the time. Like even now, I still love reading Morningstar reports and things like that. And just, listening to CNBC Market Watch. Like I do that in my spare time. I find a lot of investment opportunities and trade opportunities just by listening.
Wow.
So those are some of the things that I did. But it was really great to have a lot of just the not inside sort of trading, but just inside access.
Information. Knowledge.
Exactly. And that was really, really cool just to see and be exposed to for sure.
So then tell me a little bit, you've had your business now for, gosh,
a long time
coming up pretty soon. It'll be 15 years, right? So it's
actually,
coming
about
up
12-ish years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, you're hitting some incredible milestones and it's really exciting. Tell me a little bit about sort of the dominoes that fell that led you to starting this, because obviously, the path of most security for some people would be stay with the banks and like build this fat portfolio of clients and like manage their wealth and obviously, do your own investing. But there's definitely a very safe and steady route to making a ton of cash going down the route of private wealth management. So to make a conscious decision I'm going to get out of this lane here. I'm going to start playing in other lanes. What happened there?
It was a couple things. One of the big things was I really felt like it was God talking to me. I had this like itch that needed to be scratched. And I was, working at a firm that was the ideal position for me. I was on track to take over this firm at that time. The gentleman I was working for was basically like, okay, he called me Broadway. Okay, Broadway, you're going to take over. I'm retiring in X amount of years and it's going to be yours. We got to get you ready. And it was like the perfect goal. I mean, the perfect position to be in. And I just kept feeling like, I never figured I was sitting there one day, I was like rebalancing someone's portfolio. And I was just like, I think I'm supposed to be helping more people. What that looked like exactly, I had no clue. But I just felt like I was supposed to be helping more people than just the one or a couple at a time, or, we have a small group. And then also my friends kept coming to me asking me for financial advice. I had bought my first house before I graduated college, and people were like, okay, you bought your first house. You've been investing. Like, what are you doing over here? And I just kept feeling like I wanted to help a lot of my family, a lot of my friends, but they couldn't become clients of the firm that I worked at. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, we're practically begging millionaires to manage their money. People that are trying to figure out how to get there, we have to tell them, call us when you get there. It doesn't make sense. And so I went to my mentor and I was like, hey, like, I think I'm gonna quit my job and help people that don't have tons of money to help them figure out how to get there. Because I'm like, if y'all are going after the 1%, I'm going to go after the 99%. I got better odds. And he was just like, you are never going to make money helping people that don't have money.
And wow. And boy, was he wrong, because you've done very well.
And he called me and apologized. I had an article that came out in Forbes and he called me and apologized. He was like, Broadway, you're right. Like, you did it. And, that was the turning point for me. I've never felt like any job was secure. And these are things that I don't know, maybe for a past life, I've gone through trauma with jobs. I don't know. But I knew that nothing was secure. And I felt like where I was in life, although it was the perfect track, it was everything that I had worked for, it was boring. It was not as exciting as I thought it was going to be. You see stockbrokers and you're thinking you're going to be working on the floor of the exchange, and now like everything is digital. So it's like, that's not even even the way it is, And so it was just like, I don't want to do this. And I felt like one of my favorite quotes when I was in my 20s was, don't fear failure, fear regret. And in that job, I felt like if I have to do this for another 30 years, I'm going to regret this. Like, this isn't it. And I have never been scared of failure. I feel like you fail, you brush yourself off and you do it again. And to me, the excitement of the unknown was exciting.
Yeah.
Right. Having the stability of the job did not excite me. Like, I need stuff to be shaked up a little bit. And so that was really why. And, it's so funny. I would say when I decided to quit my job, I was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you make good money. Like, what are you doing? Like, I had a condo, I had a nice car, I'm like 20 something years old, 25, 26, something of that nature. And they're like, why would you do this? And, I felt like this, I'm like, hey, the worst case scenario is I lose my house, I lose my car, or I have to start over. And, all those things happened. My house went into foreclosure. My car got repossessed. I was able to get the car back and get my house out of foreclosure. But it was my first time facing broke head on. And that was hard and depressing. And I started hating God. I'm like, what are you doing? I know you made me quit my job to do this. And why do you have me out here struggling? And now I look back and I understand that those years, as hard as they were, it was me. I was actually learning a new skill set that I had never had before, right? I knew the private wealth management. I knew the investing. I even knew the trading at that time, but I didn't know about cleaning up your credit. I didn't know how to, effectively budget when you don't have tons and tons of money. I didn't know about getting out of debt. And I got this whole new skill set that then I feel like my personal finance knowledge just broadened. And then one day I just stopped feeling bad for myself. And I was just like, nah, this ain't gonna be broke is not gonna be my story. And that's literally why I named my book The Wealth Decision. Cause I'm like, every day we wake up, we can choose broke or we can choose wealth. And I'm gonna choose wealth every day. And that's when I had to sit down and I sat with my grandfather and my mom, and I'm like, I need y'all to help me navigate this. Cause clearly I have some sort of mental block about tackling my finances because I was just embarrassed and ashamed that I just didn't want to, admit where I was financially. And we sat down and I needed outside help. Just walk me through what I usually do.
The courage to ask for that is something that I know a lot of women certainly get caught up in the shame and guilt around situations, and the courage that you had and the foresight to be like, I need support here. Come help me is massive. Yeah. It's huge.
And that was definitely the game changer for me. And I was able to kind of navigate through that. And then it was on. I'm like, now that I've faced my fears and I've even faced the additional fear of being judged and feeling guilty for getting in this financial situation, what else is there to face? Yeah. So let's go.
So looking at sort of this business that you've built and obviously I want to talk and touch on impact and not just the impact you've had on other people, but also the impact that you have opted into for yourself. You've now put yourself into a position of a financial position that sounds like is something maybe you had a feeling you could end up with, something you knew you wanted, but at some point you didn't know how it was going to happen. And God, as you said, sort of presents here's the path. And it definitely sounds like you did a lot of doubling down on who you are and reinforcing a lot of faith here. But tell me a little bit about the impact that you've been having on others with your work. I know your work is so satisfying for you, and I'd love for the audience to hear a little bit more of what you impart and how and the impact that it's made.
Yeah, it has been, sometimes I get chills thinking about just the stories of people's lives have been impacted, whether it's just paying off their debt or buying their first house or just getting financially confident to leave their partner or whatever it may be. We've done just so much work. People who have been able to learn how to trade and can bring in, I was talking to a student recently and she's like, yeah, I'm averaging $12K a month. And now I can actually take care of my mom and my dad, and she still works. She's like, I'm still working, but I have the cash to actually help take care of them. And she didn't have that before. So you hear those stories and it just really touches my heart. We've now educated, we've had over 600,000 people take our classes, which is insane. We have about 40,000 actual paying students as well. And so it's just been...
It's a goddamn movement, Dominique. I mean, it's a movement.
So funny. I think about young Dominique when I was like sitting at this job, I'm just like, I'm supposed to be doing something else. But what is it? And I just couldn't figure out what it was. But it was just like, God was just like, you gotta go. You gotta move. Like you got the basics. You got the foundation. You gotta go. He just didn't give me a clarity on where I was going in the timeline. But now I'm like, okay, God, I see what you wanted me to do. And I let you use me. And then I've also been financially rewarded because I did let you use me. Right. And so I just want to tell her, like, sometimes I'm like, you're on the right track. You know, I would have never thought it would be this. I'm not going to lie. Like, I did not see this.
I love that.
Also being an ambivert, right? I'm an introverted extrovert. So like I can be on, but I'm also like, leave me alone for 2 weeks. So the fact that I have like this audience sometimes is just like, this is weird. How did this happen? Why do people like me? Why are they following me? You know, but I think more people should go with their gut feeling. I think, you know, a lot of times they don't. And I think you're really truly doing a disservice to yourself and to whatever greater power you believe in. Right. And a lot of times when we feel stuck in life, it's because we're not walking in our purpose. We're not listening. We're not listening. And so it has been great because it's not about me, you know, and to know that the work that I get to do, yes, it has been beneficial for me financially, but even still, when something's beneficial for you financially, you still have to be a good steward of the dollars that you receive.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about sort of stewardship of money and also the ways in which you've been investing and some of the new things you've been investing in or trying out, because I do think that investing is it's kind of the wild, wild west. People think about investing and they think of really just the stock market, which I know is sort of a big area of your focus, but it's also so many other things. Like investing is simply the act of putting time, money, resources into something with the hope of a return. And so you can do that into people, you can do that into so many different kinds of businesses. So when you're looking at sort of, you know, stewarding your money and obviously looking at, you know, you're now a mom too, which is very exciting. So there's like the next generation in front of you. How are you looking at stewarding the resources you have now? Where categories of investments do you look at? And what's really lighting you up as you think about continued transformation around your wealth?
I would say, well, obviously, as I mentioned, having kids, right? Which I totally have not even mentioned this whole podcast here. But yeah, so I have 2 daughters, a 3 and a 5-year-old. So pouring into them financially has been a big thing of mine. Making sure I'm maxing out their retirement accounts and just putting money aside for them so that they have just a lovely financial nest or whatever, nest eggs, they say, has been big for me. But also just one of the things I'm really excited about, honestly, is just investing into other women's businesses has been something that's just been really, really on my heart, on my soul. I've done some angel investing over the last couple of years, and I've had companies that have actually exited or been acquired, which has been really cool. And so seeing like to take $1 or take those dollars and put it into someone that I believe in and then see the return back from that. And they also got the support has been really cool. But I've been, you know, I've definitely, obviously in the stock market, really heavy. Real estate, I love. As I mentioned, doing angel investing. I've bought other companies as well. And then I sold one of them back. So I'm always looking for just really cool, unique ways. I love watches. So I love investing in watches because watches hold value really well. Even other little things like, men may not consider this investment, but purses, you know, as well. I've dabbled in the transportation industry with 18-wheelers. What else have I done? Like I've done lots of different things. You know, investing in wine and whiskey, stuff like that. I even considered buying a vineyard one time. I'm actually glad I didn't do that. I'm always looking for just like really fun ways to make my money grow. Has been really cool. But I think one of the best investments I feel like any of us can make is honestly into ourselves. And I'm making sure that I'm continuously learning new things has been helpful for me because it gives me the exposure to new investment opportunities, but also to me, it just keeps my own earning potential high.
Yes.
Right. So as long as I'm understanding how to make money and understanding technology and marketing, I'm actually going to a class while I'm in New York here about like a sponsorship thing, like the best tips and strategies to get sponsors for in-person events and things like that, because I'm doubling down on that next year. And then I'm going to take the information back to my team and have them implement it. But I want to know too, so it's just constantly learning about just all of the possibilities that are out there has been, I think, most helpful for me. Because I think sometimes people start to get a little bit of wealth and they're just like, okay, I'm good. And I'm just going to sit here. But that's not it. You got to keep learning. You have to keep exposing yourself. Oh, I also have a SaaS company as well. So give me a hint.ai that gives people buy and sell signals, right? So that's kind of like a supplement to my education business. So now I have the SaaS company that I have started to grow, which is great. So one of the big things too is, like I said, I wanted to make sure that I got certain companies to different revenue streams before I started to do extra things. And I think sometimes people spread themselves too thin. They'll have like a lot of little teeny revenue streams instead of really doubling down onto something and saying, how can I get this to 6 figures or 7 or 8 figures? And then taking resources to grow something else or to pour into another thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh my God, Dominique. I feel like if I could spend the next 4 hours on the phone with you and send you some champagne and like hang out, I feel like I'd be
that sounds fun.
a very happy camper. So obviously life is in session for you, and there is lots that's going on. And certainly you've also been at this for a long time. I mean, starting off your entrepreneurial journey at 5 is very exciting and
very seasoned, right?
Very seasoned, serial entrepreneur from literally the age of the cereal boxes, and eating cereal. But as you're looking, I feel like these days we are just living so much longer than we ever could have imagined. And when we think about finances and certainly legacy in life, it is something that I think now is very different. I've been seeing all these longevity conferences, and really, I mean, if that is true, then while at 5 years old, you're an entrepreneur, you're still kind of a baby now. And there is a lot more to experience and to create. And so if you were to sort of project yourself to a young age of 105, like, what is the legacy and what is it that you're looking to leave here as a result of the body of work you've created on this planet?
I would love to lead and have made an impact that allows people to feel financially confident, but that they also have the learning curve, the success curve is reduced because there's financial resources on tap. There are educational resources on tap. I'm hoping that they can say, wow, Dominique put something in place that if I want to start a business, I could go and I can go from idea or ideation to launch rapidly, because she learned the hard way. We're going to be able to learn the easy way, and the capital's there. And I can provide a great, income plus have time freedom, right? Because that's the thing I want people to have is confidence in their finances, but also time freedom and, killing the 40-hour work week so that people can really do what we're here to do, is spend time with people we love, and have better experiences. So what that's going to look like exactly, I have no clue. But that's what I'm hoping that I leave and people feel like something like that is in place and that their mindset is broadened to understand that life is really about having that financial and time freedom so that people can enjoy their lives more. I want people to be happier in their day-to-day is really honestly what it boils down to.
I love that. I want for that. I want your dream. Yeah. I want your dream to come true. So my favorite last 2 questions, Dominique. The first one is, money is fun to save and invest. It's also fun to spend. You've alluded to handbags and watches. What are some of your other most favorite ways to spend your money?
So my favorite way, you can take away the handbags, the watches. I don't really things. It's experiences. I love traveling. I would spend all my money traveling if it was up to me, and luxury travel. I love lovely hotels. I love just experiences. I love local experiences when I go to places, and I love first class. I love those things. That's what I would spend if I didn't have all these kids. I would spend all my money I would literally be traveling the world full time and just traveling and new experiences every day.
Oh, I love that. That is so magic. And my last question for you is, especially when you're in the business of being of service to others, which ultimately, I do hold in my mind that the more people you serve, just the more you're rewarded in equal or more proportion. It's really powerful, this act of service. But certainly, we also are always calling in and needing things, right? We're wanting. There are things that we're calling in, and hopefully we're always in a constant state of creation, right? What is it we're wanting and looking for? Our audience is really wonderful because everyone is here in the spirit of togetherness and supporting and uplifting and evangelizing each other. What is it that you are calling in right now? How can we support you?
I am calling in new opportunities to utilize all of my skills. That's what I'm calling in. New opportunities that challenge me, but allow me to utilize all the skills that I've accumulated. And that's something that I haven't been able to figure out exactly what that is. So I'm just seeking those new opportunities and experiences to have bigger impact in this space, but also in other spaces as well. So that's amazing. That's what I'm trying to channel right now.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dominique. You're a gift. I so adore you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Getting Rich Together. Please take a minute to subscribe. And if you like this episode, I'd love it if you could share it with a friend who is ready to elevate their financial future. Until next time, let's keep getting rich together.